June 8, 1942, midnight. The German forward lines near Sudovikino on the banks of the Don River. The air hangs thick with the metallic tang of gun oil and the faint rot of mud churned by endless boots. Private Hans Müller hunkers in his foxhole, the coarse wool of his greatcoat scratching against his neck as he strains to listen. The front has gone unnaturally quiet. No artillery rumble, no distant chatter of machine guns, just the occasional cough from a comrade or the rustle of wind through the steppe grass. But then, a faint whoosh, like a broom sweeping through the night sky. His heart skips. "Hexen," he mutters under his breath, gripping his Kar 98K tighter. The witches are coming. The sound grows, not a roar like the Luftwaffe's Junkers, but a soft, insidious swish. Canvas wings slicing the darkness. No engines, no warning. Müller scans the black void above, his eyes watering from the cold. There, shadows against the stars, low and lumbering like ghosts on the prowl. The first bomb whistles down, a high-pitched keen that ends in a thunderous crack. Earth erupts 20 meters away, showering him with dirt and shrapnel. Screams pierce the night as tents collapse and ammunition crates ignite in blooming fireballs. "Alarm! Russische Bomber!" someone yells, but it's too late. Another shadow glides overhead, silent as a predator, releasing its payload with deadly precision. The ground shakes again, and Müller dives deeper into his hole, tasting blood from a split lip. You can almost feel it, the bone-chilling dread that gripped those Wehrmacht soldiers. These weren't the sleek fighters of the Red Air Force screaming in at high speed. No, these were relics, open cockpit biplanes from another era, creeping in under the cover of moonless skies. The Polikarpov Po-2s, derided by Luftwaffe aces as sewing machines or coffee grinders during the day, transformed at night into instruments of terror. Their pilots? Women. All women. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment, barely a month into their combat debut, had already begun to weave a legend that would haunt the Eastern Front for years. As the raid intensifies, searchlights stab upward, their beams frantic and futile. Anti-aircraft guns cough to life, tracers arcing wildly into the emptiness. But the planes are too low, too slow, too elusive. One Po-2 banks sharply, its wooden frame creaking audibly now as the pilot restarts the engine with a sputter, a tiny 110 horsepower radial that sounds more like a lawnmower than a war machine. It climbs away, vanishing into the murk, only for another to take its place. Bombs rain down, 100-kilogram high explosives, incendiaries that set fuel dumps ablaze in roaring infernos. The regiment's navigators, peering over the side with nothing but a map and a compass, call out targets in hushed Russian whispers. There, the artillery battery. Drop now. In the chaos below, Oberlieutenant Karl Becker rallies his men, barking orders through the din. Hold your fire until you see them. Waste no rounds. But how do you shoot what you can't hear coming? The witches fly in waves, up to 8 aircraft at a time, each carrying just 2 bombs under the wings. They loop back to base, rearm in minutes, and return, relentless, inexhaustible. That night alone, the 588th logs over a dozen sorties per crew, pounding German positions until dawn threatens to expose them. By morning, the encampment is a smoldering ruin. Vehicles gutted, supply lines severed, morale shattered. These women, led by the indomitable Major Yevdokiya Bershanskaya under the guidance of aviation pioneer Marina Raskova, aren't just dropping ordnance, they're dropping fear. The Germans, who mock the Po-2's top speed of 94 miles per hour and its flimsy construction of plywood and fabric, learn quickly that mockery invites doom. Nachthexen, they call them, night witches, whispered in dugouts like a curse. Entire divisions lose sleep to that telltale swish, sentries jumping at every gust of wind. And this is just the beginning. As the bombs fall and the fires rage, one question burns in the minds of the survivors. Who are these spectral avengers, and how far will their vengeance reach? The Spark, Marina Raskova's vision. October 1941, Moscow under siege. Snow swirls through the shattered streets as Luftwaffe bombers drone overhead, their payloads shaking the ground like distant thunder. In a dimly lit office at the Central Aero Club, Major Marina Raskova, Soviet aviation's brightest star, sits at a cluttered desk, her uniform crisp despite the chaos outside. Letters pile high in front of her, hundreds, then thousands from women across the motherland. Pilots, instructors, students, factory workers, all begging to fight. If our brothers and husbands can fly and shoot, one reads, why can't we? Raskova's eyes burn with determination. She has already broken barriers, first woman to graduate from the Zhukovsky Air Force Academy, navigator on record-breaking long-distance flights. Now, with the Germans at the gates, she sees a chance to shatter one more. She marches into the Kremlin, past skeptical generals puffing cigarette smoke, and lays her proposal before Stalin himself. 3 all-female combat regiments, fighters, dive bombers, and night bombers. No auxiliaries ferrying planes or patching wounds. This time, women in the cockpit, dropping bombs on the invader. Stalin listens, strokes his mustache, and nods. The order is signed that very night. Raskova is given authority to select and train them. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment is born. You could almost feel the electric hope that surged through those young women when the call went out. Ages 18 to 26, they arrive at Engels Airfield by train, truck, even on foot. Civilian coats over borrowed uniforms, suitcases stuffed with whatever warmth they can carry. Among them, Yevdokiya Bershanskaya, a calm, steely commander with years of pre-war flying experience. Nadezhda Popova, a daring instructor from Ukraine. Marina Raskova, sharp-minded physicist turned chief of staff. They step off the trains into biting winter wind, greeted not with fanfare, but with disbelief from male instructors. Girls playing soldier, one mutters. Raskova silences the room with a single glare. These girls will be the best pilots you've ever trained. Training is brutal. The Po-2 biplanes assigned to them are leftovers, 1930s trainers built of plywood and percale fabric, open cockpits exposing pilots to minus 40 degrees Celsius at altitude. No radios at first, no parachutes considered a necessary weight, no guns for self-defense. Fuel gauges, a cork on a wire dipped into the tank. Navigation, map, compass, and stars. Yet the women master them faster than any male class before. They fly day and night, practicing dead-stick landings, instrument approaches through cloud, bombing runs on makeshift ranges. When male cadets get new yak fighters, the women patch bullet holes in their own planes with whatever canvas they can scavenge. They sew their own flight suits from salvaged material, dry greatcoats black for night camouflage, and laugh in the face of mockery. But beneath the bravado lies iron resolve. Raskova drills into them a creed: precision over power, courage over comfort. The enemy will underestimate you, she tells them during a freezing parade ground address. Use that. Become their nightmare. She walks the flight line every evening, checking logbooks, offering quiet encouragement. To the mechanics, also women, she demands perfection. One loose bolt could doom a crew. By spring 1942, the regiment is ready. Raskova sees them off from Engels with tears she refuses to let fall. Bershanskaya takes command in the field. The women nickname themselves Duncan's Regiment after a beloved pre-war song, but soon the Germans will give them a far darker name. As the first crews load bombs under flickering floodlights and throttle up those wheezing engines for the long flight south to the front, a question hangs in the frigid air. Can these young women, flying museum pieces, truly turn the tide against the most feared air force in the world? Summer 1942. A forward airfield near the Don River bend, just behind Soviet lines. The moon is a thin crescent, barely enough to outline the rows of Po-2s parked on the grass strip. Ground crew, women in grease-stained overalls, swarm around the aircraft under blackout conditions, loading bombs by touch alone. No lights, no voices above a murmur. Captain Nadezhda Popova, call sign Nadia, climbs into the front cockpit of her assigned biplane, her navigator, Lieutenant Yekaterina Ryabova, settling in behind her. Both wear padded flight suits layered with whatever wool they can find. The thermometer reads -20 Celsius even in June at altitude. Goggles fog with every breath, hands numb before takeoff. The engine coughs to life, a stuttering pop, pop, pop that echoes across the flat steppe. One by one, the pairs taxi to the end of the field and lift off, climbing slowly into the black. Once clear of the airfield, Bershanskaya's standing order takes effect. At 10 kilometers from the front, cut the throttle. The propeller windmills to a stop. Sudden, absolute silence. Only the rush of air over struts and wires, the faint creak of wood and fabric. The Po-2 becomes a glider, descending in a shallow spiral toward the target. You can almost hear your own heartbeat in that void. No engine noise to betray them, no infrared signature for German night fighters to track. Below, German sentries pace their posts, cigarettes glowing like fireflies. They have learned to dread quiet nights. Oberfeldwebel Fritz Weber cups his hands around a match, muttering to his comrade, "Too still, they'll come tonight." And they do. The first warning is not sound, but instinct, a prickling at the back of the neck. Then the whisper, a soft, rushing sigh high overhead, like a giant owl banking in the dark. Weber drops his cigarette and dives for cover just as the first 50-kilogram bomb detonates with a blinding flash. The explosion rips through a parked staff car, sending burning petrol arcing into ammunition crates. Secondary blasts ripple across the position. Popova's plane ghosts over at barely 300 meters, low enough for Ryabova to spot the target by starlight and the glow of the fires below. Left 5 degrees, steady, drop. 2 bombs release with a metallic clunk, tumbling end over end. The Po-2 shudders lighter, then banks hard right as tracers suddenly stitch the sky. Belated Flak 38 guns opening up. But the witches are already gone, slipping away in the dark. Engine restart comes only after they're clear. A sharp dive to pick up speed, throttle slammed forward, the little radial barking back to life. They climb for home, weaving through shell bursts that lag seconds behind. Each crew flies multiple sorties, 8, 10, sometimes 18 in a single night. Land, refuel, rearm in 15 minutes, back into the sky. Mechanics work by feel, ground guides using dim flashlights covered in red cloth. Navigators plot the next route while still taxiing. Sleep? A stolen hour between waves, curled under a wing with a greatcoat for a blanket. Coffee is rationed, most run on raw adrenaline and hatred for the invader. The toll is brutal. Frostbite blackens fingers and toes. Exhaustion blurs vision. The constant cold seeps into bones, yet losses remain astonishingly low. The Po-2's slow speed and low altitude make it nearly impossible for Messerschmitt Bf-110 night fighters to engage without stalling. Searchlights sweep uselessly. By the time guns traverse, the witches have vanished. German frustration boils over into myth. Captured soldiers speak of invisible demons, of broomsticks in the sky. Hitler himself rages about the Russian night harassment squads, ordering any captured female pilot shot as a partisan. The nickname spreads like wildfire through the Wehrmacht. Nachtwitches, night witches. An Iron Cross is promised to any Luftwaffe pilot who downs one, yet few ever claim it. The obsolete biplane, mocked as a relic, has become the perfect asymmetrical weapon, cheap, expendable, terrifying. As the summer nights lengthen and the front grinds toward Stalingrad, the 588th refines its craft to lethal perfection. But perfection demands sacrifice. One crew will not return this night, and their absence will reveal just how high the price of vengeance truly is. The price of the night, sacrifice in the flames. August 1942, the same forward airfield, just before dawn. The sky is turning from black to bruised purple as the last wave of Po-2s returns. Ground crew count the silhouettes limping home. 1, 2, 3, 7. 8 had taken off on the final sortie. Major Yevdokiya Bershanskaya stands at the edge of the strip, binoculars pressed to her eyes, face unreadable. A single aircraft is missing. Crew 23, pilot Senior Lieutenant Rufina Gasheva and navigator Lieutenant Natalia Mechlin, two of the regiment's steadiest hands. Back over the target an hour earlier, Gasheva's Po-2 glides in low over a German rail marshalling yard near Mineralnaya Wody. Mechlin leans out, wind whipping her face raw, spotting the strings of boxcars loaded with Panzer ammunition. Perfect line, drop on my mark. 2 bombs fall away, striking true. A chain of explosions blooms along the tracks, secondary blasts ripping through fuel tankers in sheets of orange flame. Tracers answer instantly, heavier flak this time, 88mm guns that have been moved up secretly. Shells burst in black flowers around them. Shrapnel tears through the lower wing, shredding fabric like paper. The Po-2 lurches, controls sluggish. Gasheva fights the stick, restarting the engine early to gain speed. They climb hard, but a second burst catches them square. Fire licks along the fuselage, fed by leaking fuel. You can almost smell the burning fabric and aviation spirit, hear the crackle over the windrush. Gasheva shouts back to Mechlin, voice calm even now. Bail if you can. But at 800 meters, parachutes are useless. They'd never open in time. Mechlin refuses anyway, staying to help nurse the crippled bird. Gasheva sideslips violently, trying to blow out the flames, but the fire spreads to the cockpit. With German searchlights pinning them like a spotlighted moth, Gasheva makes the only choice left. She banks toward an open field behind Soviet lines and pushes the nose down. The Po-2 slams into the earth at full speed, cartwheeling in a roar of splintering wood and detonating remaining bombs. When partisans reach the wreck at dawn, both women are gone, bodies burned beyond recognition. Only scorched logbooks and fragments of uniform remain. News reaches the regiment as the sun rises. No tears on the flight line. There's no time. Bershanskaya gathers the pilots and speaks quietly. They hit the trains. The trains will not reach the front today. That is what matters. Mechanics silently patch the bullet-riddled survivors, sewing new fabric over the holes. Another crew steps forward to take the empty plane. The war continues before grief can settle. Losses mount through the brutal summer and autumn. Frostbite claims toes. Exhaustion sends planes into spins during landing. One crew vanishes entirely over the Sea of Azov, likely ditched in the black water. Another is jumped by a roaming Bf-110 that manages to match their speed. The Po-2 erupts in mid-air, witnessed by 3 other crews who can only watch helplessly. By the end of 1942, 30 women of the original regiment are dead or missing. Yet replacements arrive, fresh graduates from Engels, just as determined. The 588th never pauses. Over 3,000 sorties in the Caucasus campaign alone, harassing Rommel's supply lines as the Germans drive toward the oil fields. The Germans grow desperate. New orders, floodlights along every major road, acoustic detectors straining for the whisper of wings, even attempts to seed clouds with silver iodide to force moonlight. Nothing works. The witches adapt, flying in worse weather, lower altitudes, sometimes through rain that turns cockpits into iceboxes. Captured Luftwaffe pilots admit privately the witches cost more sleepless nights than the entire Red Air Force combined. As winter 1942 grips the front in iron cold and the Battle of Stalingrad reaches its bloody climax, the 588th prepares to move north.
There, in the frozen hell surrounding the Volga, they will unleash their deadliest campaign yet, one that will see individual crews fly 18 missions in a single night and earn the regiment its greatest honor. But first, a new year brings a new terror. The Germans have finally found a weapon that might silence the witches forever. Stalingrad's frozen hell, the peak of relentless fury. January 1943. The ruins of Stalingrad, encircled and starving. Temperatures plunge to -40 Celsius. The Volga itself is a sheet of ice thick enough for trucks. Inside the German pocket, Paulus's Sixth Army is being slowly strangled. And every night, from airfields hacked out of the frozen steppe east of the river, the night witches rise to tighten the noose. A new forward base near Leninsk, nothing more than a flattened field ringed by snowdrifts and camouflaged Po-2s. Frost glitters on the wings like sugar. Mechanics chip ice from propellers with hammers before each takeoff. Major Bershanskaya briefs the crews in a dugout lit by a single kerosene lamp. Tonight we fly until we cannot fly anymore. The fascists must not sleep. They must not eat. They must not think. The target list is endless. Encircled airfields, supply dumps, command posts, even field kitchens. Anything that keeps the enemy alive. Senior Lieutenant Larisa Rozanova and navigator Hiwaz Dospanova take off first in the pitch dark of 0200 hours. Their Po-2 claws into the air, engines straining against the dense cold. Once over the front, throttle back. Silence falls. They glide across the frozen Volga, low enough to see German campfires flickering like scattered embers in the snow. Rozanova's hands are numb on the stick. Dospanova's map is stiff as cardboard. They drop 4 50-kilogram bombs on a cluster of UU-52 transports parked wingtip to wingtip at Potomnik Airfield. Explosions bloom white against the snow, aircraft erupting in geysers of burning fuel. As they bank away, the entire field lights up, secondary blasts from loaded bomb racks tearing the night apart. One sortie ends, another begins. Land, rearm, refuel. 15 minutes on the ground. The same crew lifts off again and again. On the longest nights of the year, some pairs complete 18 missions before the pale winter sun creeps over the horizon. 18 times into the frozen hell and back. Total bombs delivered by the regiment in a single night sometimes exceed 20 tons. Over the entire Stalingrad campaign, the 588th will drop more than 3,000 tons on the trapped army. You can almost taste the exhaustion. Eyes burning from wind and cold, voices hoarse from shouting coordinates over the slipstream, bodies shaking uncontrollably on landing. Yet no one refuses a mission. When one pilot collapses from frostbite and fatigue, another steps forward. When a navigator's fingers turn black, she binds them and flies anyway. The Germans inside the pocket descend into madness, soldiers firing wildly at shadows, officers screaming for the Hexens to be stopped. Searchlights sweep constantly now, flak batteries fire at nothing, night fighters orbit uselessly above the lethal cold that even their heated cockpits cannot fully defeat. But the Luftwaffe has adapted too. A new threat appears. The Messerschmitt Bf-109G, equipped with underwing searchlights and flown by experienced aces pulled from day duties. They prowl the approaches to Stalingrad at low altitude, hunting the slow biplanes. On the night of January 16, 1943, one such hunter finds its prey. Lieutenant Polina Gelman and navigator Tatyana Sumarokova are on their 12th sortie when the sky behind them suddenly ignites. A blinding searchlight pins their Po-2 like a specimen on glass. Tracers whip past. The Messerschmitt closes fast, cannons flashing. The fragile biplane has no defense, no rear gun, no speed to run. Gelman throws the Po-2 into a violent sideslip, diving for the deck. Snow rushes up to meet them. The Bf-109 overshoots, struggling to slow down without stalling. Gelman pulls up at treetop height, engine screaming, and vanishes into a blizzard squall. The German pilot never finds them again. That close call spreads through the regiment like wildfire. The witches now face a hunter that can match their night. Losses tick upward. 3 crews in 1 week, then 5. Yet the missions never stop. The psychological damage to the 6th Army is irreversible. Paulus surrenders on February 2, 1943. In his final report, he cites constant night bombing as one of the factors that broke his men's will. The 588th is awarded the Guards designation for its role, the first night bomber unit ever so honored. They become the 46th Guards Night Bomber Aviation Regiment. 23 of their pilots will eventually be named heroes of the Soviet Union. But the war rolls on. As spring thaws the steppe and the Red Army prepares its great push westward, the Night Witches move with it. New bases, new targets, new horrors. And in the summer of 1943, one young pilot will perform a feat so extraordinary that even her own comrades will struggle to believe it.
July 31st, 1943. North Caucasus Front, near the village of Asinovskaya. A sweltering summer night, broken only by distant thunder from artillery. The 46th Guards Night Bomber Regiment has pushed forward again, operating from a dusty strip carved out of sunflower fields. Tonight's target, a heavily defended German bridgehead across the Kuban River, vital for the retreating Wehrmacht to evacuate men and armor before the Red Army's advance cuts them off. Lieutenant Nadezhda Popova, Nadia, already a veteran at 21, with over 400 sorties in her logbook, climbs into her Po-2 for what should be a routine wave. Her regular navigator is ill with fever. Tonight she flies with Olga Sanfarova, a sharp-eyed replacement. The airfield is a hive of controlled chaos, engines warming, bombs rolled under wings by hand, crews briefing in whispers. Bershanskaya's order is simple: keep them awake, keep them bleeding. The first sortie begins at 2200 hours. Popova lifts off, climbs to 1,000 meters, then cuts the engine 10 kilometers out. They glide silently over the German lines, the river glinting faintly below. Sanfarova spots the pontoon bridges and supply barges clustered like toys. 4 bombs away, direct hits. Explosions ripple along the water, barges erupting in geysers of flame and splintered wood. Flak erupts too late. They're already gone, engine coughing back to life as they race for home. They land 25 minutes later. Ground crew swarms, fuel, bombs, a quick swig of water. No rest. Back into the sky. Second sortie. Third. Fourth. Each time the defenses grow fiercer, more searchlights, heavier concentrations of 20mm and 37mm guns. Tracers weave red lattices in the dark. Popova dances the fragile biplane through them, diving, climbing, side-slipping like a leaf in wind. By the 10th sortie, exhaustion sets in deep. Hands cramp on the stick, eyes sting from cordite smoke drifting over the front. Sanfirova's voice is hoarse from shouting corrections, yet they press on. 11th, 12th. The bridgehead is burning now, secondary fires from fuel trucks lighting the horizon like a false dawn. You can almost feel the sheer physical agony, back aching from the hard wooden seat, legs numb, the relentless cold at altitude even in summer. But something fiercer burns inside. Rage at the invaders still clinging to Soviet soil. Pride in the regiment that has never once failed a mission. 13th sortie, a near miss. Shrapnel peppers the fuselage, tearing a fist-sized hole in the upper wing. Fabric flaps like a torn sail, but the Po-2 holds. They drop their load on an ammunition convoy and limp home. Mechanics patch the hole with doped fabric and glue under lantern light, while Popova and Sanfarova gulp hot tea and scarf black bread. 14th, 15th, 16th. The sky begins to pale in the east. Roosters will soon crow in the villages behind Soviet lines. Most crews have long since stood down, but Popova refuses Bershanskaya's quiet suggestion to stop. One more,
she says. "They're breaking." 17th sortie. Dawn is a thin gray line as they glide in for the final time. The bridgehead is chaos. Pontoons sinking, vehicles abandoned in flames, soldiers scattering into the reeds. 2 last bombs fall true, severing the final intact span. As Popova restarts the engine and turns for home, a lone Bf-109 streaks out of the rising sun, cannons winking. Tracers snap past the cockpit. She dives hard, skimming the treetops, weaving through the river valley until the Messerschmitt breaks off, fuel low and daylight exposing him to Soviet fighters. They land at 0450 a.m., 18 full combat sorties in a single night, over 9 hours in the air, more than 1,800 kilometers flown, 8 tons of bombs delivered by one crew alone. Popova staggers from the cockpit, legs barely holding her. Bershanskaya catches her as she sways. No words, just a fierce embrace. The regiment's war diary records the feat in simple terms. Lieutenant Popova, 18 sorties. Enemy bridgehead neutralized. Word spreads up the chain of command. Stalin himself signs the decree. Nadezhda Popova is awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union. She is one of 23 night witches to earn the nation's highest honor, more than any other female unit in history. But the war is far from over. As 1944 dawns and the Red Army surges across Ukraine and into Poland, the witches follow, harassing retreats, pounding rail junctions, sowing terror all the way to Berlin. And in the final months, they will face the deadliest skies yet, over fortified East Prussia, where the Germans throw everything left into the fight. One last campaign awaits, one that will claim the life of their beloved founder and cement the legend forever.
The final skies, East Prussia and the road to Berlin. February 1945, the snow-swept forests of East Prussia. The Red Army's great winter offensive has smashed through the Vistula and is now hammering at the gates of the Reich itself. The 46th Guards Night Bomber Regiment, now battle-hardened veterans with over 24,000 sorties flown, operates from forward strips in Poland, just kilometers from the front. The Po-2s are more patched than original now, wings resewn a dozen times, engines coaxed through their 3rd overhaul, paint scorched black from near misses. Yet they still fly, still hunt. The targets are different here. No longer retreating columns or supply dumps, but fortified cities, rail hubs feeding the defense of Königsberg, pillboxes and bunkers bristling with flak. The Germans throw everything skyward. 88mm batteries in concrete emplacements, quad 20mm flak Vierlings that fill the air with steel, radar-directed searchlights that snap onto intruders with mechanical precision. Night fighters, FW-190s and even early Med-262 jets adapted for darkness prowl in packs. The witches have entered the most lethal airspace of the war. Major Yevdokiya Bershanskaya, now 41 and showing every year of command, briefs her crews in a frozen barn lit by a single bulb. We fly lower, faster, smarter. The fascists are cornered animals, dangerous but desperate. Among the pilots listening intently is Captain Marina Raskova's spiritual heir, Guard Captain Irina Sebrova, holder of the record for most sorties, over 1,000 now. Beside her, Nadezhda Popova, hero of the Soviet Union, prepares for yet another night. The regiment's tactics evolve one last time. They fly in larger formations now, 12 or 15 aircraft weaving erratic patterns to confuse radar predictors. Some crews act as decoys, drawing fire while others slip through to bomb pillboxes supporting the German Fourth Army. The cost is immediate and steep. In 1 week over the Heiligenbeil pocket, 6 crews fail to return, shot down, rammed, or simply vanishing into the Baltic's icy waters. You can almost feel the tension in the cockpit as Sebrova and her navigator Olga Yakovleva glide over the burning port of Pillau. Searchlights converge like spears of white fire. The sky erupts in black puffs and tracer streams. Sebrova dives to 50 meters, hedge-hopping over treetops, releasing bombs on docked supply ships.
An 88mm shell bursts directly beneath them. Shrapnel rips the lower wings to ribbons, severs control cables. The Po-2 rolls uncontrollably. The final skies, East Prussia and the road to Berlin. February 1945. The snow-swept forests of East Prussia. The Red Army's great winter offensive has smashed through the Vistula and is now hammering at the gates of the Reich itself. The 46th Guards Night Bomber Regiment, now battle-hardened veterans with over 24,000 sorties flown, operates from forward strips in Poland, just kilometers from the front. The Po-2s are more patched than original now, wings re-sewn a dozen times, engines coaxed through their third overhaul, paint scorched black from near misses. Yet they still fly, still hunt. The targets are different here. No longer retreating columns or supply dumps, but fortified cities, rail hubs feeding the defense of Königsberg, pillboxes and bunkers bristling with flak. The Germans throw everything skyward. 88mm batteries in concrete emplacements, quad 20mm flak Vierlings that fill the air with steel, radar-directed searchlights that snap onto intruders with mechanical precision. Night fighters, FW-190s and even early Med-262 jets adapted for darkness prowl in packs. The witches have entered the most lethal airspace of the war. Major Yevdokiya Bershanskaya, now 41 and showing every year of command, briefs her crews in a frozen barn lit by a single bulb. We fly lower, faster, smarter. The fascists are cornered animals, dangerous but desperate. Among the pilots listening intently is Captain Marina Raskova's spiritual heir, Guard Captain Irina Sebrova, holder of the record for most sorties, over 1,000 now. Beside her, Nadezhda Popova, hero of the Soviet Union, prepares for yet another night. The regiment's tactics evolve one last time. They fly in larger formations now, 12 or 15 aircraft weaving erratic patterns to confuse radar predictors. Some crews act as decoys, drawing fire while others slip through to bomb pillboxes supporting the German Fourth Army. The cost is immediate and steep. In 1 week over the Heiligenbeil pocket, 6 crews fail to return, shot down, rammed, or simply vanishing into the Baltic's icy waters. You can almost feel the tension in the cockpit as Sebrova and her navigator Olga Yakovleva glide over the burning port of Pillau. Searchlights converge like spears of white fire. The sky erupts in black puffs and tracer streams. Sebrova dives to 50 meters, hedge-hopping over treetops, releasing bombs on docked supply ships. An 88mm shell bursts directly beneath them. Shrapnel rips the lower wings to ribbons, severs control cables. The Po-2 rolls uncontrollably. Sebrova fights it all the way down, managing a wheels-up crash landing in a snow-covered field behind Soviet lines. Both women crawl from the wreckage burned and bleeding, but alive. Their plane does not survive the night. Losses mount, yet the witches refuse to yield ground in the air. They pound Königsberg's defenses night after night, softening the fortress for the final assault. When the city falls in April, Soviet infantry report finding German soldiers huddled in cellars, hollow-eyed from weeks without sleep, whispering about the Hexen that never stopped coming. Then comes the ultimate push, the Battle of Berlin. The regiment relocates to airfields east of the Oder River. From here, they strike the heart of the Reich. Rail yards feeding the city's defenders, bridges over the Spree, even the Tiergarten where flak towers rise like concrete cathedrals. On the night of April 25th, as Zhukov's and Konev's armies close the ring, the night witches fly their final combat missions over a capital ablaze from end to end. But tragedy waits almost until the last moment. On July 4th, 1943, the war in Europe is over, yet one final flight remains. No, the true final loss comes earlier, in a cruel twist of fate. Marina Raskova herself never saw the regiment's greatest victories. The woman who birthed the Night Witches died in January 4th, 1943, in a snowstorm while ferrying a new aircraft to the front. Her Petlikov PE-2 crashing in blizzard conditions near Saratov. The regiment learned of her death during the height of Stalingrad and flew that night with black rage, dropping bombs in her memory. Yet her legacy ends the war unbroken. On May 8, 1945, Victory Day, the 46th Guards stands down. Over 4 years, they flew more than 23,000 combat sorties. Some sources claim over 30,000 with attached units, dropped over 3 million tons of bombs collectively across all Night Bomber units, but with the 588/46th delivering a staggering share through sheer volume of missions. 32 of their sisters are dead. 23 wear the gold star of Hero of the Soviet Union, a record unmatched. The last Po-2s are grounded, their canvas wings finally at rest. In Berlin's ruined streets, Soviet soldiers tell stories of the women who terrified an army. German veterans years later still wake at night to the imagined whisper of wooden wings. The Night Witches are disbanded quietly in October 1945. No parades for the women who flew sewing machines into legend, but their story endures. The ultimate proof that courage, precision, and unrelenting will can turn even the humblest weapon into nightmare incarnate. And somewhere, on quiet nights, old Wehrmacht veterans swear they can still hear it, the soft, deadly swish of broomsticks in the dark.